good day. My name is Mrs. Dennis Fitzhugh, and I'm pleased to make your acquaintance. You probably know my sister, Lucy Cron. She's the mistress of this house, and you may have heard of my brothers, General George Rogers Clark and General William Clark of the Voyage of Discovery. Well, welcome. I'm just here visiting. My family calls me Fanny, so I am here on a short visit with my sister and seeing my brother, who I just dearly love. And I am looking here at these paper dolls that I just found. My husband, we own a store on Main Street between 4th and 5th. It's called Fitzhugh and Rose. We have lots of interesting items there. But this is a little paper doll book, and I had never seen one before. It's called Little Fanny, which I kind of like because that's my name. And I've purchased it for my little daughter, Lucy. It's a history of Little Fanny exemplified in a series of figures. And what it is a little story about Fanny, who all she wants to do is play, and she gets into all kind of trouble and ends up a beggar. And it's a really good lesson on why you should obey your mother. So the first part of the story is Little Fanny, and all she wants to do is play, and she doesn't want to mind her mother, and she's very spoiled. And so she just doesn't listen to anything her mother says, which, as you know, 4-year-olds can be like that. So she gets this beautiful coat and muff and hat, and she wants to wear them out to the park. But it's not the right season to wear a coat and a muff and a hat out to the park. So her mother says, no, you can't do that. And so Fanny doesn't listen, and she takes herself to the park. And along the way, she's accosted by robbers who then steal her beautiful coat and hat and muff. And Fanny ends up as a beggar. And these slide right into the back. So Fanny ends up a beggar, and she's really sad, and she doesn't want to go home because she's embarrassed and ashamed of herself. So she's begging. She doesn't have any shoes, and she's just begging for money. Well, somebody takes pity on her and gives her a job selling fish. And so she goes around and sells fish for a little while. She has fish on her head in a basket. And then she gets a better job, and she starts selling eggs and milk and running errands selling eggs and milk. Put that down in there. And she still won't go home and apologize to her mother because she's too ashamed of herself. And then she finally gets the best job so far, and she's delivering butter. Little does she know that her mother has been keeping an eye on her the whole time, waiting for her to learn her lesson. So Fanny gets a job delivering butter, and she recognizes the street, and she recognizes the house, but she's too ashamed to knock on the door. And then her mother finds her sitting on the front steps crying and comes out and gives her a big hug and invites her to come in and hopefully learn her lesson. And do you know what? Fanny has learned her lesson, and she does her studies and listens to her mother. Let me get this on. And is a very happy little girl now that she's doing what she's supposed to do. So I think that is a lovely story for a 4-year-old to learn how to mind her mother. We also have a book called Little Henry that's for boys. I would get that for my youngest son, Clark, but he's only 2, and I'm afraid that he might just tear them to pieces or chew on them or something. So we'll save that for when he's older. But if you are interested, come down to Fitzhugh and Rose between 4th and 5th on Main. We live above the store. Sadly, that's why my brother George couldn't come and stay with us while he was having his convalescence from his leg. Oh, you don't know that story? Would you like me to tell you? It is a little graphic, and maybe sensitive ears might not want to hear this, but I'll be discreet. So, well, my goodness, what happened? It was February of 1809, and George had a dinner party over at his cabin at Clark's Point, over across the river. And that evening he had dismissed his servants to go do their own things and take care of their own business. And George, at some point in the night, had some sort of fit and fell in front of his fire, and he laid there all night long with his leg right up against the burning logs, and couldn't move. And his leg was burned so badly. Well, my nephew Samuel had stopped by that morning for a short visit, and when he walked into George's cabin, he found George lying there on the floor. Well, he picked George up and put him into bed and looked at his leg and thought, my goodness, this is not something that I can take care of. So he went to find the first doctor that he could, which happened to be a veterinarian. And so he came back to the cabin with the horse doctor, and the horse doctor tried to bandage George's leg, but he wasn't a medical doctor, so he did the best he could. In the meantime, Samuel came across the river on the ferry and went to his mother's house, my sister Ann, and they sent word to me because we are the closest to George, living in Louisville as we do. And we came across to Clark's Point and went to his house, and we found him in quite a state. His leg was just terribly burned, and we knew that it was going to be difficult to save the leg, but we wanted to try for George's sake. So for 3 weeks, Ann and I took care of George. We changed the dressing on his leg and washed the wound, and it was just not getting any better. And we could tell that it was becoming putrid, and gangrene was coming into his leg, and that it was going to kill George if we didn't do something drastic. So we called on Dr. Ferguson and asked Dr. Ferguson to attend to George, and we moved George very carefully. We took him back over to my house down in downtown, and Dr. Ferguson tried again to save George, and there was nothing to be done. So it became apparent that George was going to have his leg removed. It was a terrible, terrible day. Only thing George asked for was a shot of whiskey and to have some music playing in the background while his leg was amputated. So we were lucky enough to find some of the men that George had on his expedition to defeat Henry Hamilton, and they came and stood outside of his window all day long and played music. And when the operation was going on, it was the martial music, like what you would march to into war, to just kind of try to make George brave. And I was outside in the hallway, pacing back and forth, trying to contain myself, wanting to go in, knowing that I wasn't able to do so, and I was waiting to hear George scream out in pain, and I didn't hear a word. The only thing that George did, we heard, was that he kept time to the music while his leg was being amputated. It was said that he was tapping on the windowsill. That night, the men played quiet camp songs that were relaxing, and we took care of George in our house as long as we could. Because we live on the second floor, he couldn't get out, he couldn't go out on, to visit anybody, and living in downtown is, as you well know, not the healthiest place. It's crowded, it's dirty, it's muddy, there's not a lot of green space to go enjoy nature, and so it became apparent that George was better off here at Locust Grove. So we moved him here a few weeks later, and he's been here ever since, and my sister takes wonderful care of him. I think he likes being around all the children. He likes to go sit on the porch and have visitors and keep an eye on what's going around in the back of the house. Kit takes wonderful care of him. Kit is with him all day long, and we don't know what we would do without Kit. So anyway, I like to come and visit George every now and then and check up on him and see how he's doing, and I just feel really sad that he has ended up as he did, because he was such a hero. He's the bravest person I know, he and my brother William. Well, anyway, back to little Fanny. If you do want to come get little Fanny or little Henry, you are welcome to do so. Again, Fitzhugh and Rose on Main Street between 4th and 5th. Tell Judge Dennis Fitzhugh that Fanny Fitzhugh sent you, and you are welcome to check out all of the other things that we have for sale. We have a lot of variety of very nice items, and I'm sure you'll be pleased. Again, it was very nice to meet you, and I hope to visit with you again sometime.